The agenda is before you. We will follow the agenda as printed unless otherwise moved by the manager or the superintendent. Um, Let me first welcome members of the school board. It's good to see all of you here. We're so delighted and happy that you're here to join us in our first initial meeting under the new council. And congratulations to Mr. Jordan and to Dr. Gabriel and the most recent election. Everyone at the table knows each other, but for the sake of taking it for granted, if anyone has any opening statements before or not, let me just move right in. We have a shared responsibility, Norfolk Public Schools and the City Council, as well as the Virginia Department of Education, working together for the best practices and the best outcomes for our scholars that are in our schools. We pledge that we will work with you to improve our schools. We've heard it not only from the business community, from parents, but more importantly, we owe it to those scholars that are in those classrooms to deliver them the best possible education that we can. We are celebrating that we may have as many as 24 of our schools affected. But at the same time, the number of schools that may be denied may move from 5 to 13. That gives us some concerns. It gives the community some concerns. And certainly we pledge to help and work collaboratively to make sure that all those schools reach full accreditation. It's a tough pull, but we're up for the task. We're up for the hard work. And we pledge that we will have funding, resources available to help in that effort. The last thing I'll mention is that the message that's in Richmond concerning Norfolk Public Schools is a mixed message. The Department of Education look at our test scores and look at our division, and they would like to work with our division as a whole instead of working with individual schools. They would like for us to enter into a memorandum of understanding, a new memorandum of understanding, so all the existing memorandums of understanding will be null and void, and enter into a new memorandum of understanding, which will bring new resources, new funding to help us address our challenges. Again, I welcome all of you here. The council and I look forward to this joint meeting and working with you collaboratively to improve our schools and have the best outcomes for all the students in Norfolk Public Schools. Again, welcome. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, school board, I'd like to echo the mayor's opening statements in terms of just having us all together. I know as a school board, we've been anxious to get together. We offered to host our next meeting, and so we look forward to being able to schedule that and be able to possibly have the next meeting out in the school facility where we have the opportunity to really be immersed in where we try to work every day to make a difference. I had the opportunity to sit in on part of the city council's retreat where you all were focused on education. A few days prior to that, the governance team, the school board, and the superintendent, we spent a day and a half together doing our own training, doing our own governance, addressing how we build upon the strengths that we have in Norfolk Public Schools and what is our role as a school board and as a governance team in ensuring that occurs. At your retreat, your facilitator began your conversation with two prompts. What is your role and how do you support the school system? And really those are the prompts that we deal with as a school board every day. You know, what is our role, our relationship to the superintendent in supporting the work of the division for positive outcomes, and then how do we support the school system? So on the agenda, part of what we've proposed and has been agreed upon is to begin with a conversation about just roles and responsibilities and how we support one another and collaborate. We had a good time today at Southside STEM Academy at Campus Stella, and also yesterday at Richard J. Bowling Elementary School, Richard H. Bowling Jr. Elementary School. And there we talked about collaboration and what partnerships can bring and how respecting one another and working together can produce positive outcomes. So at the point that the mayor is ready to move on, what we would like to begin with is some of our members are just going to walk through a abbreviated exercise that we've done amongst ourselves in terms of our role and the role of the school board and the superintendent. And many of you received an email right before the meeting from one of our parents who's very active and very engaged. And we find often as a school board that the public at large really doesn't always understand and grasp our roles and responsibilities. So we just thought it was a good place to start with new members of council, new members of the school board, and begin to set a partnership for the next 50 years of success and triumph for our schools and for the city as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Okay, so the school board governance discussion, school board members.
So I think before you, there is a PowerPoint that has been passed around that speaks to the NPS governance team. We all should have a copy of this. If you don't, you can make one.
Oh, here's an extra one.
No, that's the superintendent's.
This one.
Here's an extra.
Who got it?
I thought it was a thicker presentation.
We'd like to be brief, we'd like to not PowerPoint you guys to death, so it's just a single PowerPoint.
We like that.
Yeah.
All right.
So I would begin by just highlighting a few points, and some of my colleagues will take up a few others. The first bullet point is that we employ the superintendent. Our role is to hire, support, and evaluate the superintendent. And we did that successfully in December, where Dr. Boone came on, and we're pleased to have her here today. Another is we adopt the vision and board goals, and we determine that through a strategic planning process. So the long-term vision is really very important for us, so that everybody knows what direction to be rowing the ship, rowing the boat. And so it's important that we have a strong superintendent and a strong board so that we provide that long-term directional vision so that all in the division and the community frankly know where we're headed. And then I'll also speak to policies and budget, and then I'll let my colleagues speak to a few others. So in addition to establishing and employing the superintendent, we also set policy. That's a critical role for us. We have a policy committee on which Reverend Ed Haywood sits, as well as Ms. Tanya Basine. And we work closely with the administration and frankly with the community to establish new policies or update policies as necessary. And then we also establish an annual budget, and you all are well aware of that because you help support that financially. And the money, as you know, comes from both the state, the local, and we also have federal and state grants as well. So our budget right now is about $384 million. That's 321 that we get from state and local, and then in addition, that's federal and state grants that get us to about a 384 million budget. So it's a big business that in fact our superintendent manages as the CEO from a day-to-day basis. So budget, policy, and the employment of the superintendent, those are three primaries, and I'll leave it to my colleagues to speak to a few others.
Okay, well, I'll pick up right with the other aspect of what we do, and that is ensuring effective and timely communication of the accountability system's progress. One of the things I'd like to highlight is that the school board this summer has worked very hard in establishing a school board accountability plan, which is different from the division's accountability plan and is at a higher level that really keeps us focused on areas around student achievement, around safe and secure 21st century learning environments, and community and parent engagement. And with that, we are looking at specifically, of course, having all of our schools fully accredited, which Mayor Alexander spoke to earlier, on our on-time graduation rate, of course, monitoring our SOL achievement and opportunity gaps, which will be a major focus as we also engage in greater conversation and action around equity in our school division, and also attracting and retaining teachers in our division, which is going to be nationally. It's a national conversation and a national issue, so that's something that's going to affect Norfolk as well. So that's one other aspect that the school board does. And of course, we're following the regular process to review student achievement and to ensure continuous improvement for all of our students. And so Ed, if you'd like to pick up on.
Yeah, there are 2 points that I think that are important for us to note. I think the council knows that Norfolk School Board, like I think most of the school boards in the state, are trained by the Virginia School Board Association. And part of that training has to do with what our roles would be. And we're taught from the very beginning that we're a policy committee or board, and that our roles would be very distinct from that of the superintendent. And so we're taught not to go below the line, as the term is used, which is to say that we would not manage the day-to-day operations of the divisions. We would not attempt to usurp any of the authority that the superintendent has to manage the schools. We find that to be difficult sometimes because we're drawn below the line. Our citizens consider us to be managers of the school, so that's a misconception as to what our roles are. And of course, any complaint that the public has about the school are brought to school board members, and we're expected to follow those up, but we give the responsibility for the day-to-day management of our system, our division, to Dr. Boone, the superintendent. One thing that we have been trained as well to look at is that as an individual on the school board, we have no more power than any other citizen, but as a team member, working together as a team to set policy for the school board, our roles are defined there. So that's someone would come to me and say that they think that this or that should happen with the school board. I don't have the ability or the influence to be able to bring that about apart from the full working of the board. So the defining of those types of roles for us are very, very important. We sign board norms and an ethical policy which says that we would not attempt to do other than policy making with the board. Thus, for me to be able to approach, say, for instance, the council apart from the board, to influence the council apart from the board, would defy the board norms and ethics that we do have. So if the board decides that it is going to do something, they decide together. If I don't agree with what the board decides, it is not my place then to seek to go around the board to develop a policy or to influence a policy by approaching, say, the council or some other authority. So I think that type of role, understanding of our roles, is very important.
So I'll just pick it up from there as well. We have made it a point to be very engaging with the community, and when we engage with the community and attend civic leagues, we get questions that would be better suited for perhaps council members, and council members probably get questions that might be better suited for school board members. But we all understand that the school division is something that we all care about, and we all have to work together on in order to improve upon the division that we have. And as a part of our training in Charlottesville, we were actually role-playing a civic league where we had to explain what were the roles of the school board, what was the role of a superintendent. And when you actually put yourself in that role and field questions from an audience, it really gets you to come into the conclusion of, what lane am I supposed to be in? And I can tell you that now, having attended a few civic leagues, and some of my colleagues will share this with you as well, that's what I open up the discussion with. What does the Norfolk Public School Board do? What is the responsibility of the superintendent? And that helps to frame the discussion, and it helps me to allow a better answer for them and for them to direct their questions to who it is that is the most important. As Ms. Doyle mentioned earlier, we kind of view Dr. Boone as our CEO. She manages almost 32,000 children pre-K to high school. She has over 5,000 employees. She's in charge of a $380 million budget. We give her the vision, and she takes it from there. And we want to be receptive to the community and to council members and have good discussion, but really, we need to allow her to be responsible for the job that we hired her to do. And that's how we evaluate her, that's how we monitor success, that's how we hold ourselves accountable, and it's all part of a process. And if we can get all of those things to work together, then I think that leadership from the top down is how the division is going to be able to be a strong division moving forward.
Anything else? So I'll just give, I wasn't part of the practice of the presentation, but I just want to give an example of something that we start off with. So the mayor mentioned interest that the state has around MOUs or MOAs and that type. So we know that Dr. Boone, as our superintendent, is engaged with the Department of Education every day. When we were dedicating Richard Bowen the other day, she left there and she was involved, and staff were involved with visits from the Virginia Department of Education. As school board chair, when we have the opportunity to sign MOUs or other agreements, those things come before the board for discussion. The board decides how we want to act. The board authorizes me to sign or not sign agreements of that type. And so it can easily cause confusion if we don't necessarily follow that process where VDOE is communicating with the superintendent who has the big picture and has understanding of the reforms that she's leading in the division. And so just as we wouldn't want Richmond to come down and try to micromanage the work of the city, we believe in the partnership. We know we have to have the relationships. VDOE and the state board is an important partner to us. But we just believe it's very important as the superintendent is dealing with it 365 days, and as a school board that spends a great deal of time and effort working with the superintendent, working as a board, talking to our teachers and others to do the best we can to understand the needs of the division, that those types of conversations and those types of agreements and relationship would evolve from the superintendent with the state, her recommendations to the school board, and the school board with the superintendent having a give and take on what direction we would take as a division.
And one of the things I'd like to piggyback on Noel and with Ed is that we are truly a team. We work collectively as a team. And because we are a part of the city, then we all should indeed work collectively as a team, even with the city council and the school board, and making sure that we get the correct message out. One thing about us is that when we do put our message out, we do it collectively. And we would try and work on one accord, and that's just really important in terms of putting our image out. A positive image is what we are all about.
So,
All
Mr.
right.
Mayor?
All right. Okay, Dr. Boone, superintendent update.
So I'll just real quickly, when we talked about the agenda, one of the things that we thought was important was to give the superintendent an opportunity to give the council and the board and the community just an overall update of where we are, both in terms of academics and operations. We receive many questions, comments, either from council members directly or from citizens at large. Just wanted to say we always welcome attendance at our meetings. We have our work sessions on the first Wednesdays. We have our business meetings on the third Wednesday. We invite citizens' comments at that time. And we also have plenty of advisory committees and other groups that are out there where we encourage citizens to participate, even whether it's at the central level or down at the building level where principals and teachers are also engaged. So we just asked Dr. Boone that she would come and provide this update to you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Alexander, Chairman Jordan, members of City Council, and School Board, and City Manager Jones. It's always a pleasure to be with the joint body, and glad to be back again from my spring earlier visit this year. And, shortly after my arrival, and to be able to talk about the progress of the district and where are opportunities, what's going well, and where are areas for improvement and strength. One of the things that I said to the City Council and Board earlier this year is that I was not coming in with a whole lot of bells, whistles, banners, and balloons. That it was going to be about how we do business differently, how we focus on our main responsibilities, and of course, those are the responsibilities of teaching and learning, and how we're going to use that to move this district forward. Focused on best practices, using our data to inform our decisions, and just making sense out of this whole collective and very complex entity of education pre-K-12. I appreciate both the mayor's comments and Mr. Jordan's comments as it relates to the Virginia Department of Education. And for those new members of council, you will recall when I was here before that I commented on the fact that I did not have to build a relationship with the Virginia Department of Education because I had been here in the state before and had long-standing relationships from the board chair, state board chair, to the state superintendent, as well as the individual in charge of the Office of School Improvement at the state level. So it was just a matter of us reconnecting and working very, very closely as we think about the state's term of improvement. I think is a low bar. My term is turning around the district so that we aren't just chasing a number, which unfortunately is the state's premise. We get to a number, but that doesn't represent whether or not children are learning. And that's been a part of my message this year to our collective team, as well as the work we're doing with the board. And so how do we step beyond test scores to understand if children are learning? Because we know as the state board is facing the development of the profile of a Virginia student and a Virginia graduate, one of the things that the state board has recognized in the State Department is that both higher ed and the business community said you have great test takers, but we don't necessarily have the people ready to take on the challenges sometimes in higher ed as well as in the business community. And so even the state is rethinking the total value, the sole value of SOL tests for the work we're doing. But I also recognize that that state SOL scores represent our public report card. So not dismissing that, certainly we have to improve on our report card. But I will also say the status of Norfolk Public Schools as I arrived on December 1st didn't happen on November 30th. And therefore, this is a marathon, not a sprint. There are some things we have to accelerate and do better quicker. There are some things that's going to take a lot more time to build an infrastructure and systems of support. And so that's the work that we are doing. I'm doing a PowerPoint today simply because there's some data that I want to share, but as you will recall at my first meeting, I prefer to engage in the conversation. But I want to share, particularly with council and the public, some of the data points and the matters that are fully discussed in our board meetings on a monthly basis, twice monthly, as we look at data around student achievement, what are the practices that we're engaged in. So let me run through quickly some of these slides. I'm going to focus on three particular areas in my brief presentation. One is our student achievement and school accreditation. Second deals with high school course enrollment. And the third will be budget. So I'm going to move through in that. So for the 2016-17 school year, in this particular graph is recognized that we have 51% of our schools fully accredited. We currently now have 45 schools in our accountability system. We have 50 total sites when you count alternative and other sites. But we have 45 schools that fall under the accreditation ratings, and 51% of those schools we're very pleased to say have met full accreditation. I think a very significant data point in this is last year we had 13 schools that were in the third year warn, meaning it was the third year they had been accreditation denied or partially accredited warn status. 6 of the 13 schools in that status moved into full accreditation, and that's a very significant data point given the hard work and the leverage of what happens here. And you'll see in the presentation those schools that cross that bar. Now we're across, how do we maintain it? That's a key piece. This particular chart provides a summary of all school accreditation in Norfolk Public Schools for the last 4 years. As you will see, fully accredited in the last column for based on the 15-16 data, 23 of our 45 schools have met full accreditation. We have one school partially accredited approaching benchmarks. They were fully accredited last year and missed it by 1 point this year. We have 2 schools that are in the warning status, and you heard me mention before, a 3rd-year warning. We had 6 of the 13 schools to exit. We have 2 schools that remain in the warning status. We have 10 schools with accreditation denied. The mayor referenced that a moment ago. And we have 9 schools where we're waiting to hear the status from the state. And I think it's important to note that one of our schools has also continued in partially accredited, reconstituted status. You know, the state has all of these levels, and truth be told, it's full accredited or denied. And so it makes somebody feel good that we have all these things in between. And so, but we have one school that missed the accreditation by 1 point, again. And so we see how close we are. We aren't talking about, we have some schools that are very far from the bar. We have other schools that are right on the cusp of that level of success. And we also know that the state is addressing the accountability system, given the transition from No Child Left Behind to Every Student Succeeds Act. And so we wait to see what will be the guidelines from the federal government as well as the state's direction on what school accreditation will look like. So when we talk about what's going on within, I want to provide a little more information, some more drilling into the data for our elementary and secondary schools. This particular graph represents the 4 core content of English, math, history, and science, with writing being included. The blue bar represents our student performance on the 15-16 SOL test. And you can see where we continue to make positive progress, or at least sustain progress in a number of areas. You will notice that in English, we had a significant dip in the 2012-13 school year. We're in that recovery. And literacy is a major focus for the district, K-12. What are the stories behind the numbers in terms of some of these schools? 18 of the elementary schools met full accreditation this year when it was 13 last year. 74% of our elementary schools had increases in science, and 26 of the 31 schools met or exceeded the state benchmark in history. In our secondary schools, all of the middle schools met or exceeded the state benchmarks in civics, economics, and world geography. And we continue to exceed the state average for middle school students taking, for secondary students enrolled in geometry and algebra 2 in terms of our pass rates for end of course tests. Also, we've seen an increase in our reading scores at 7th and 8th grade, and we've seen improvement in 5 of the 6 tested areas within mathematics, including double-digit gains in those areas. All 5 of our high schools met or exceeded the benchmark for end-of-course reading, writing, world geography, and chemistry. All of the end-of-course test benchmarks were exceeded in chemistry, world geography, and algebra 2. And again, that's significant because as we think about what the career opportunities in the workforce is demanding, our students have to be strongly literate in terms of reading and writing skills, but they also need the math and science skills to be able to navigate any career that they're interested in. What do we attribute our gains to in student achievement? Though not on the chart, I will say, as I said to the board in June and July, we have a very dedicated core of teachers and principals, and they're at the forefront of this work. And so my commitment as superintendent with the district's leadership team has been, how do we build capacity and strengthen capacity and not focus on the selection and identification of programs, but investing in our human capital in order to get the results that we know our children are capable of. and that our adults are capable on delivering also. And I think that's very important. So we look at our tiered system of supports, our response to intervention, how do we take students from where they are so that we give them those supports. Our focus on lesson plans. One thing that I heard as I was named superintendent in October last year, and as I was transitioning to the district, is that we had an issue with our lesson plans and we had to fix it. And so we think we've done it. We've had input from teachers and principals and others, revised our lesson planning process, rolled that out this year, and we're waiting to evaluate that and make other tweaks if we need to. Of course, use of data and professional development. I mentioned that the district's work is where we are focused on redesign, not programs, not gimmicks, not things just to get us across the bar, but how do we ensure our children are learning? And this focus is in two key areas, literacy and leadership. This is a slide that I've shared with the board over time in terms of our MPS redesign. Listening, learning, connecting, aligning our work and our resources, both human and physical, creating the systems for effectiveness, and this is how we will reach a redesigned MPS. The additional strategies as we continue to strengthen our teaching and learning outcomes, we're very excited. In August, we had 2 days of professional development prior to the opening of school. That professional development focused on what you teach and how you teach it, and what are the supports that you, as teachers and students, need. We even had principals access that some of that content of the training prior to the teachers receiving it so that we're all on the same page. And again, it was not about what's new in a program. And so you'll see here a number of strategies that we have. But again, these strategies are about how we focus on teaching and learning and the human capacity to get the job done. Recently, there was an article in the paper that focused on something called recycling. You will not hear me use that term recycle because we recycle things, not people. And therefore, I will provide to council and to the board and the public an update on a topic that has been fully vetted with the school board over the last year, even prior to my coming. And so we will talk about our high school course enrollment. Last November, well, it goes back to, I think, August of 2015. A question was raised at a school board meeting, and the school board asked that the district research course enrollment and student support at the high school level. There were reports done to the board November 14th of 2015, reported on January 20th, 2016, and then a report done for the board on May 4th, 2016. We researched course enrollment and looked at first and second semester trends. The results of those reviews reveal that we did a sampling of review high school courses for first and second semesters of 14-15 school year and sample review for 2013-14. Students at risk of not passing the first semester may sometimes be redirected from the second semester of a course sequence. For example, in Algebra 1, first semester and second semester, student is in Algebra 1 first semester, not meeting with success. The student then is, in working with the family, is guided into either repeat of the first semester or a math course that leads to, for that student to be ready for success going forward. The majority of the SOL tested courses have 90% or more of the students taking the first and second semester's course sequence. We found our greatest number of students who were not part of the, who experienced a redirection, a different pathway toward graduation, primarily in Algebra 1 and geometry. There were students who take AP Human Geography instead of World Geography, and I think that's significant because the state does allow substitute tests. And so there are students who can take the Advanced Placement Exam in AP Human Geography instead of the World Geography. They can take the SOL test, so they can take an AP exam and the SOL test. They have the option of both. 99% of students participate in SOL testing who are enrolled in a second semester SOL tested course. We continue with an expanded review of the information. And we looked then from 2010-11 through 2014-15, focused on courses with a 20% or more enrollment difference between the first and second semesters. And the majority of those courses, as we indicated, were in mathematics courses. Lake Taylor High School's data reflected that they had some of the largest movement, with 7 of the 12 SOL tested courses having a variance from first to second semester of 20% or greater. The implications, what are the implications for students? Intervening with students prior to their failure of a course makes sense. Do we constantly allow students to fail without intervening and giving them the supports that they need to be successful? The supports to both increase readiness for the course as well as the success in the courses. But I think what is extremely important for everyone to again recognize, all students who will receive a standard or advanced studies diploma still must take and pass the SOL test to receive verified credits. That's a non-negotiable. So this idea of if students are not taking the test when they first enroll in the course, they still have to take it in order to graduate. So there's no circumventing the opportunity for the SOL course prior to graduation. So what are the supports that we put in place for students? Elective class support during the semester, such as a math lab, an Algebra 1 lab. We have created some of those. Before and after school support and tutoring. Push in and push out support for students where teachers and additional support go into classes, students go out. Some students double blocking, meaning that they have both the core course as well as a supplemental piece for the course. And we also offer credit recovery through our program of GradPoint. Academic performance for students who are not successful in first semester is reviewed to determine what's the best pathway and the best support system for individual students to be successful in the course and subsequently the course sequence. Ultimately, you can repeat the fall course in the spring semester or through summer school or the upcoming fall and roll it over. But the idea is, again, there's a non-negotiable as it relates to the courses in terms of graduation. And just quickly, in my last couple of minutes, I'm right on schedule. My last couple of minutes, I want to address 2016-17 budget. Again, Ms. Doyle referenced our $321, almost $322 million operating budget, which grows to $384 million roughly with all of our additional funds in that. It's important to, so you see, we have 2 different representations of the revenue sources in our budget. We have a chart where 59% of our budget is comes from state funds, 36.8% represents city contributions, and a little less than 2% of our budget comes from federal dollars. This particular pie chart then also illustrates the revenue sources for our various funds. We are very appreciative, I personally am very appreciative with the relationship that I have with the city manager, where we can talk very strategically about what it takes for us to have our schools successful, and my recognition and respect of the city's overall needs as I advocate for what we need in the schools, and it's a great relationship. We often laugh and joke, though, that the budget for the schools does not parallel the budget for the city, and therefore, we can have some shared conversation and continue to educate ourselves on what we're doing and how we do it. I have 180 days a year to make it happen for children, even though the school district operates 365 days a year. So there are certain points, entry points for budget that won't necessarily work for the schools, and we have to be ready for that first day of school and those funds. I also want to let you know that we're watching the state budget situation very closely, holding with bated breath to see what will be the adjustments or recommended adjustments to the budget in the first year of the biennium. You will recall that the governor's budget included a mid-year 2% increase for teachers in certain of the standards of quality funded positions. The school district built its budget on a full year 2.5% increase for all employees. And so in the event that the state is not able to sustain its portion of that raise, the district will immediately face a $1.4 million deficit in the current fiscal year budget. We're also watching very closely as it relates to the second year of the biennium, where the Virginia Retirement System contributions are due to have a significant increase. And because of the state's revenue projection or revenue projected shortfall, we're concerned as to whether or not the state's contribution toward raises, a full year raise next year, whether or not that's in jeopardy. So, Mr. Mayor, Board Chair Jordan, that concludes my update on Norfolk Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. I think Mr. Riddick has his hand up.
Got a couple
I recognize Mr. Riddick.
Very succinct. In terms of recycling, where did that term come from?
I believe that's a term that the media use. It's not a term I have ever used. The board will tell you, and even if you watch our board meetings.
You know, I was talking to a couple of people earlier this week and today in regards to students who you might recognize who might not, make the mark. It's good that you are strengthening them, and it's very important that the message is that we are strengthening the students and not trying to skew the scores and SOLs. And I wish you could give me a term other than, that we can use and feel comfortable with, and maybe you can come up with it later on, other than recycling, because that was a term that, the media is using. This is something that that we all know is that we're not doing, to our students and
I would
for
say,
our students.
Mr. Riddick, if I can, in the presentation, I referenced an alternative pathway to success.
Right, okay, great. Also, I'd like to know what is our capacity at the Votech School, and also how much does it cost to get a student through the program? We have so many, I guess you say, non-skilled individuals in our community who might not be connected with the school system right now. So there are some organizations who might want to fund a student to some type of career path in our VOTEC. And so I'm wondering, you can tell me what capacity we have now, and if there is room for other students, how could we, get, I guess you'd say, an estimate of how much it costs to get a student through there.
Mr. After we finish with this, we're gonna do an update on the CTE school,
Okay.
and if you're comfortable with that, then.
Well, I'm talking, I'm talking about the VOTEC.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah.
And there's just so many youngsters that are misdirected. And I believe if we can find a way to get them into the VOTEC school as exists now, to give them some type of skill, then, maybe you can have that answer, for me later. And then the last thing is that what are we doing to prepare our special ed students to make sure at the end of the journey in the school district, they have a diploma or something that they can use versus a certificate that, from my understanding, is not as mobile, that doesn't make them as mobile.
The initial key to success for our students with disabilities is for them to be able to access the core curriculum, to be able to be fully engaged in what we have as curriculum for math, science, social studies, English, all of those courses. In the presentation we did in a deep review of data with the board just a couple of weeks ago, we showed a graph where while there's still a gap between our students with disabilities and our students who are not disabled, we saw the exact same pattern of where there were areas of success and where there were areas of decline. So that's the first indication to us that the students are getting access to that core curriculum. If their graph for students who are disabled went in a totally different path, a trajectory, than the students who are not disabled, then that's a bigger issue. So the first thing is making sure our students have access to the core curriculum. The second thing is making sure that we are continuing to build a strong system of supports for those students, and recognizing that every student needs to be supported in the classroom. you recall on one of the slides, I talk about one of our areas of success, or one of the, the strategies that led to our success. And we mentioned RTI, or response to intervention. That's a strategy that's used not only for students with disabilities, but a student who's struggling in a course. What do we know about a student's needs, and how do we provide supports and interventions for those students at the point that they need it, rather than failing? And so we continue to dive into that work. You know, my background in special education, and so understanding how we do business and the ways in which we approach the students is critically important. For so long, the federal government has approached special education from a compliance model rather than an achievement model. It used to be, did you meet the timelines for the IEP? Did you meet the timelines for the evaluation? Now the federal government is saying our students have to be successful, and we certainly agree with that. And those are the things that we're putting in place. Additional programs where teachers are getting some of the work around reading skills, how we work with students who have significant deficits in reading, and what are the other opportunities that are available to our students. So we're working very closely, not only with students with disabilities, but making sure our gifted students are being accelerated while other students are getting to the benchmarks that they need, as well as our English language learner students. And of course, as with a district that has high levels of poverty, then all really does mean all when we talk about raising the level for our students.
Now, when you say disabilities, are you saying disabilities and slow learners being the same thing?
No.
When I think of disability, I think of a physical challenge.
Right, and a lot of people do. Students with disabilities are students who have both learning challenges, as well some could have physical challenges and not have any learning challenges. So it's the full spectrum from students with speech language problems, disabilities, emotional disabilities, cognitive disabilities, physical disabilities, our children with autism or somewhere on the autism spectrum. So it includes all of those. Students who have health impairments, that health conditions that impact their ability to learn also.
Mr. Smeagol, then Mrs. Graves.
Sure, yes. At the retreat, I told the board chair that if the topic of alternative paths came forward, that I just wanted to make some brief comments about that. First of all, I think that the Virginia pilot article unfairly targeted Norfolk in this. I believe that this is happening all across the state as high schools have this flexibility. And I think that there could have been data that was pulled from any district across the state that would have shown that this is happening. The second thing is, and I really do appreciate that this was in the slide because I think this was missed in the article, that high schools are still held accountable at the end of the day because of graduation rates and making sure that those students pass the SOL test. And as I pointed out to some of my colleagues at the retreat, that even the design of the Virginia Department of Education on how they design a high school allows room for flexibility and for students to fail. And a good example of this is that in order to graduate with a standard diploma, a student only needs to have 6 SOL credits, one from each of the core content areas and an additional one in writing, and then one of a student's choice. So technically, even though graduation requirements are Algebra 1 and Geometry, a student only has to pass one of those 2 SOL tests in order to graduate, but they still have to take the course. So they technically could fail the geometry SOL test and still graduate because as long as they get the credit, if they pass the class. And so even the design of VDOE, including that a standard diploma, you only need 22 credits to graduate, but you can take up to 32 credits in 4 years if you take 8 classes a day for 4 years. So the whole Virginia Department of Education is designed to allow for flexibility with students and getting to that level of success. It allows them to repeat classes. It allows them to take harder classes if they get to that point, and AP classes. And these were items that were not mentioned anywhere in the article that should support a practice of these alternative paths to success. And one other point too is that you could look at the design of any school district and see that any school district anytime could take a non-tested SOL class and move it to freshman year. For example, government is not an SOL tested course. It's an SOL subject, but it has no test assigned to it. you could put that in ninth grade year and none of your ninth graders would have to take any standards of learning test. Whereas all of the ninth graders in Norfolk Public Schools have been taking the world history SOL test, which is an extremely hard test. It's a challenging test. And Norfolk does that, but other districts do not. They put their ninth graders in non-SOL tests and wait till they're more mature to take it during their junior year or senior year. And by that point, kids could have been lost by the time they got to that point. So you can look at this, you can skin a cat in multiple ways. I think the article was missing a lot of information, background on how the even Virginia Department of Education has designed the program.
Mrs. Graves?
Mrs. Graves, if I may, just before you go. So I just want to, on the topic, just kind of reset this again. So, Ms. Basine talked about earlier in terms of the board's accountability system and the work that we've done over the summer. I just want to reiterate that, as Dr. Boone said, this issue is not something that we shy away from. The board has taken accountability with it. Before Dr. Boone signed her contract, we shared with her the concern that had been brought forward. Ms. Wagner had brought it forward to us back in August. As Dr. Boone said, we have talked about this at least 3 times. In terms of what the media rights, we're not trying to get into media bashing, all that. Our goal is just to make sure that we're accountable where we need to be accountable, that Dr. Boone is taking the necessary steps in order to address matters in the best interest of children. We talked about roles. We see our role as having that accountability function, communicating with the council and the public, letting the superintendent know what we see or questions we may have, and then ask her and her team to go about the business of addressing it. And that's what we've done thus far, and that's what we will continue to do. So I just wanted to set that.
All right, Mrs. Graves.
I just want to say that I think that the Alternative Pathways to Success plan, to me, makes a lot of sense. I think that the newspaper is in the business of selling newspapers, and that may not always be delivering the most factual information possible. I think that allowing a child to sit in a class, or a student rather, to sit in a class and fail when you see that they are failing and they're not grasping the subject matter would be negligent, to be perfectly honest with you. So I like the idea of helping children who need help and giving them the reinforcement that they need, because so many students do learn in different ways. I think it also helps to let children know that, there's so much pressure on children to pass a test and to be perfect. And, it's okay if you need help. And I think that that is another life lesson that this also brings to light. It's okay if you need help, if you don't get it the first time around, because sometimes it takes us the second or third or fourth time to get it. And so I think there are a lot of positives that could come, out of this, out of the way that you all have done things. And I totally agree with Tommy in that there are probably more school districts that do a lot of the things that we do here in Norfolk, but for whatever reason, they're not highlighted in the way that Norfolk is highlighted. But again, the newspaper's out to sell papers. And I believe that the school board and the administration is out to educate children and young people and give them the very best education possible. And so that particular way of administering the test and making sure that all of the children have the best opportunity to pass them is one that I support.
Mrs. Johnson.
Mr. Riddick, when you were talking about the Norfolk Technical School, I had an opportunity to visit there, and it was amazing the types of training that goes on there to prepare our scholars to actually go out into the workforce from various job opportunities, especially the partnership with the shipyard, that they're hiring our scholars who are there, who've gone through the training process, and that they also receive some type of stipend or I don't know what it's called, but they're in the apprenticeship along with these local businesses that are willing to hire our scholars here in the city of Norfolk. So that was amazing to me. The one thing that I really would like to know is to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements of the scholars to be able to attend Norfolk Technical School, the number of credits, the subject areas that they have to have in order to go there, because it was different when I was in school. So that was really interesting to me. The part about the RTI, I hope that I got that right, which is the response to intervention. As a former instructional specialist, it was my job to intervene, to teach teachers the best teaching practices, but also to intervene with scholars who needed a little more help one-on-one, to be able to plan with them and to teach them in small groups. And I think for Norfolk Public Schools to be able to have that capability of being able to intervene, it gives our scholars a great opportunity to go beyond if they're experiencing difficulty. Partly accredited, missed by 1 point. I truly have an understanding of what that means to work so very hard at Richard Bowling Elementary when you're in the team, the teens, and you have this instructional team who almost got the children there, but we missed it by 1.8 in social studies that we could not get for accreditation. But we did not allow that to stop us, because thereafter, every year thereafter, Richard Bowling was fully accredited. So I'm glad to hear that the teams within Norfolk Public Schools are working so very hard to keep on pushing on. And that when I heard the word policy, when we did the last round of appointments to the school board, that was my question to the candidates about policy and how important policy to be set for a governing body, whether it's city council or Norfolk Public Schools, because it sets the precedence of the success of that organization, and it is the foundation that we base everything on, whether we're dealing with the teachers, whether we're dealing with scholars, the parents and families. Policy plays a crucial role in what we do in the success of our school system. So thank you so very much.
All right, Mr. Jones.
Yes. So I have some handouts, and it's about a 100-slide presentation. I can do it in about an hour and a half. So we have a little bit of information we'd like to provide. I have one slide, okay? And that one slide, I think, will explain a lot about the career technical education. I think what's important, Mayor, members of council, and members of the school board is first and foremost, I echo what Dr. Boone has said. It's a great relationship. She even takes my calls on Sunday when it's a football game that's on that maybe we don't agree with.
Go Patriots.
But I will tell you that I think, confusion is not the right word, but I think one of the most important points here is that the work here predates me as manager, Dr. Boone as the superintendent, the mayor as mayor, and the school board chair as the school board chair. So if you go back to just this first tab, the progress to date, that's the only tab I'll stay on. And that is that this career technical education really began back in 2010 with a task force. And not that they're going to jump up and chime in or do a handoff, but I have Kenyatta here. I also have Barry Bishop, and we also have Tommy Johnson Sr., who back last year made a presentation to council about the progress to date on this career technical education. But it began back in 2010 with this task force, a partnership with the GNC, Maurice Jones, who at that time was the publisher of the pilot, and the Hampton Roads Community Foundation, Norfolk Public Schools in the city of Norfolk. After that initial task force series of meetings, there were trips out of state, both in Massachusetts as well as Delaware, for different types of programs. And it's important to say that Dr. Boone, in a jurisdiction that you were in, that's where many people went up to see how this career technical education could work. So those site visits back in 2011 led to 2012 there being a city council providing $500,000 for the initial planning of this career technical education. And there was a lot of work that was going into that, and there are some of the tabs, and I can show you some of the information that was shared back then. But actually from this, there came a study that talked a bit about a site where the CTE could be, as well as these career paths. And a lot of, Kenyatta, I have to just say, a lot of hard work and effort went into that. A series of meetings, a series of focus groups, a series of discussions that came back with basically saying that if you start to look at the career technical education as an opportunity not just for education but even workforce development, that what you would have is individuals who are credentialed that could walk out of high school and walk right into a job that potentially could pay $50,000, $60,000 a year. So that was the concept. So in 2013, there was the study was completed. 2014, again, a series of feedback sessions, and the Poverty Commission had the career technical education as a must-do on the list. So once again, reaffirmed. Back in 2015, the school board unanimously endorsed this CTE planning and public charter formation, and the city provided another $1 million to move forward. I'll just show you just a couple of important tabs, and I'll leave this alone. So if you go to the tab that precedes that falls behind this progress to date, it was really a presentation that occurred back in August 17, 2011, where the GNC came to the school board and talked about the possibility. And there's a lot of information under this tab that deals with some of the background that led this to be a good joint effort. If you go to the next tab, it's March the 18th, 2015. The school board had a presentation with the CTE High School overview. It talked about the concept, the curriculum, facility, the enrollment, and even it starts to talk about the academy structure, and it lays out a series of academies from trades and industrial technology academy all the way to engineering and design, maybe even the Governor's STEM Academy. So a lot of hard work went into this. Back at the next tab, March 18, 2015, you'll see the school board endorsed unanimously to move to endorse the principle of continued planning for a full-time academic career in technical education high school and negotiate the development of the charter application for our review. So that was the school board action. So March 21, 2015, that's when the city council in this room had a briefing that talked a bit about this career and technical high school. Much of this tab is similar to the previous tab that was shared with the school board. What's great about this meeting, it's I think the first time that both bodies are talking about it at the same time, as opposed to having presentations within weeks or months of each other. Then in August 2015, this is just a one-page tab, but somewhere in here we had a work group, the same partners, that said, how do you start making the pitch to try to get funding to make this work? At one point it was the private sector could contribute so much, the city could contribute so much, and then to even make a pitch to the state that this would not just be a school, but really an opportunity for workforce development. So even you'll see in these tabs that a concept of, even when the school, let's say if it closed at 3 o'clock during the afternoon for what we would call instruction, what about those 16,000 or so people transitioning from the military each year in the region? Would there be some opportunity for them to also come in and pick up some of the same credentialing that would have occurred during the day? So it became much bigger than just this concept. And we had John Martin come in and work with us to see how we could make that pitch. And then lastly, if you go to the November 4, 2015 school board presentation, you'll see a change in terminology. And I'm not suggesting that that's the recommendation right now, but this would be the last conversation that occurred with either one of the bodies. And the concept was a regional career pathway center, which would reflect much of what I just said, an opportunity not just for high school students, but individuals outside of those, the typical day for a high school student. And lastly, if you go to the last slide, it was a process. So this past year, I would say that the school board chair and myself and the school superintendent, as well as assistance from Tommy Johnson and the G&C, we attempted to try to build those relationships and try to get those partners to make this a reality. So back then, so almost a year ago, the concept was how do you line up funding in this 2015-2016 timeframe, a design in 2017, construction in 2018, and opening in 2019. So all this is an opportunity to give everybody the same information at the same time. I believe the most important piece here is the school board action, the endorsement back in March of 2015, which basically said a type of system like this, a school of a career path center, whatever the right term would be, with the possibility of a public charter could be a pathway forward. And that is something that was similar conversation that occurred at the council retreat this past week. So that's the quick update. And now I believe, unless Chairman Jordan has something different, I think that's about as good of a recap of the last 6 years of work in this area.
Okay. All right, Dr. Whitman?
What next?
Well, I think a part of it is what the mayor and the council did at the retreat, said absolutely positively this is a priority for the city. So we go back to the concept, and I'll just put it on the table now, is it regional in nature? Is it something that you start off, which may be smaller, and you grow into it? But I think those are the questions that the two bodies should be discussing, because right now there are some things in here that may have changed over time. That maybe the site may not be the right site, but the concept continues to be the right concept.
Mr. Manager, I would hope that you and the superintendent would work collaboratively together and bring back the next step. If your evidence and your survey comes back and determines that it's a local or Norfolk only pathway, then please inform us. If it's still regional in scope, then inform both bodies. And then certainly we should move forth with the application from the city to the superintendent for the charter. The charter would have to be issued by the school board. We can initiate it, but if it's going to be a public private charter, the school board has the final say whether or not they will issue a charter or not.
Is there consensus that a charter is the best way for us to go?
If we're going to, Dr. Weebly, if we're going to have the external support boards, businesses, industry, ship repair industry, the technology companies, those who are experts in cybersecurity and the 21st century economy, they certainly would want to have a seat, and we should allow them a seat.
And for
on the
them to
board.
have a seat, does it need to be a charter?
They can't take over, yes, because the school board, if the school board that we have is our Norfolk Public School Board. It's a public-private charter where school board members will be on that governance
So
board
that's
as well.
probably our best model.
Well, let me just brief where we are on the school board side. So as the manager mentioned, we've had presentations. We've been very affirmative in our support. Ms. Doyle has also been a part of the committee that the manager has mentioned earlier. We've said to Dr. Boone, as was noted in the earlier presentation, that she's had this experience from her previous division. So we've asked her to continue to have the conversations with the manager, with the Greater North Corporation and the other partners, and bring back to the school board where we are in, today. I mean, part of the conversation around the regional career pathway was being influenced by Go Virginia and some other conversations, but based upon what I heard you all mention at the retreat, and I know what we've talked about thus far, I mean, we want to move forward, and but we're not a taxing authority, and so in order for us to do that, we need to support the voting in support of the charter. Still under the auspices of the work that we're doing in the division. That was again another affirmative, action on our part to say to the business community and to say to the other partners, we're willing to be at the table and roll up our sleeves and do whatever work is necessary in order to make this happen for our children in Norfolk Public Schools, and as the manager said, for those exiting the military or whatever makes sense for Norfolk. And then we also were trying to be flexible as the city was looking at resiliency and other initiatives that were coming down from the great work that was happening here in the city, that if there's any way for us to align, that work. So as we talked about in the roles, we put it back in the hands of the superintendent, but we're definitely still committed to doing whatever is necessary to make progress.
I guess let me just finish real quick. I know you're sensing my frustration on this, but having been there trying to push this starting in 2010, I'm still not hearing, to me it sounds like we've got to either figure out the money, or we got to figure out the site, or we got to figure out what this looks like before we know how much money we have to raise, or what kind of site we're going to have. I mean, somebody needs to pull the plug on this and say, this is it. And I feel like you guys are the ones to do it, but if there is unanimity around here that we feel it's time to do that, then maybe we should give the charge that we'd like you to come back to us and tell us where and what it should look like and how much money it's going to cost and where that's going to come from, and maybe with the timeline to get it. I mean, I'm speaking for my own frustration. Does anybody else
You remember last year I
feel
had
that
asked
way?
for a subcommittee from council to look at this, and unfortunately, Marcus, this points out to how long this is taking for us to have this conversation. So what I was going to ask for, if we're going to do this, let's set a timeline. Let's say
Yeah,
we're
that's
coming
what I'm
back
saying.
2
Tell me
months.
when you're coming back.
2 months, and
Well-
I think everybody agrees this is necessary, so let's do it.
Yeah, so, I see.
May I?
If you guys could hold it, and I'll acknowledge Dr. Boone.
I just wanted to say, again, as the report has shown, there were probably 4 visits from teams in the city of Norfolk to Worcester, where I have the nationally recognized Worcester Technical High School. And so I do believe that some of the things since 2010, the conditions, the expectations around workforce and all those things have shifted. And so we do have to go back and revisit. But I've also talked with members of my team as it relates to, I think a lot of focus was on what the building would look like and all of that before we talked about what would be inside the building. And so I have tasked Ms. Goshen, along with Dr. Rogers and others, that as we begin, you go back to the one that talks about all of those career pathways, that I think we have to have a message to promote, both to council, the school board, and as well as the community at large and the business community, about what it is we're going to do with a lot more clarity than what it could be if we had a certain building. To Mr. Riddick's earlier question, about the Norfolk Technical Center, we haven't stopped shifting our programming there to be comprehensive and contemporary. What do we need in the 21st century? And I've said to members of the team and to some board members that we'll be back to the board later this year as we begin some of our budget work and planning around programs. So there may be some programs that we recommend to sunset as we bring in others. We're also focusing on what's happening in CTE, even in our comprehensive high schools. So this is a model for the comprehensive CTE where, unlike our students currently spend one day, they alternate days between their comprehensive high school and the Norfolk Technical Center. This would be a full-day program, and it all happens there in that building. And so there are a lot of ways for us to look at this. And as I've said to Tommy Johnson, the city manager, and mayor, and others, I'm as committed to this as I've always been to it. It is a way of our thinking about high schools of the future. I want us to broaden our thinking that, yes, the site makes it a lot easier to develop and to deliver. But if we can start talking about what it is we want to deliver on, I think then the site will follow.
All right. Ms. Doyle, then Ms. McMullen.
Sure, and I still think, Dr. Green, thanks for clarifying that point, because I think you've got a good point about the programming comes first, the bricks come to follow. But I still think a timeline would be very helpful.
Absolutely.
So that we as a group can say, this is what's gonna happen next, and next, and next, and next, because I think we've kind of, in the last year or so, have slipped a little bit in terms of what are we gonna see or hear next. And that's where I agree with you, City Manager Jones, that we're all together talking about this at the same time now. So we're all hearing the same information at the same time. So we're hearing Dr. Boone speak about the programmatic versus the brick, which I think is great. And then we're all hearing that we need to get funding sources from various locales or various entities. So I would like to come out of at least today's meeting with, what are we gonna talk about this next week together? And what is the expectation we have of Dr. Boone and Marcus Jones of establishing a timeline so that we're all marching down the path together?
Okay.
Similarly, I was going to ask for the timeline as well. I mean, we have to have some deliverables. We have to understand how this fits into the budgeting process. But again, getting to the issue of programming before building. We had a Governor's School for the Arts. For 25 years, they were in 7 or 8 different locations until they were finally under one location. And in those 25 years, they were able to teach these kids and do a great job because they had great programming. And so rather than wait till we have the perfect building, let's start to pilot these programs and let's get 1 or 2 or 3 started and get the community funding and let's roll it up. But, you know, it's an iterative process. We don't have to get it all done immediately and perfectly at the beginning.
And success breeds funding.
Right, it does. And I just think that if we wait until we get the perfect package, we're just never going to get there. This has been going on for 6 years. And meanwhile, we've got kids graduating who don't have jobs because they didn't necessarily get the right education. So let's roll up our sleeves and get it done.
Mr. Riddick?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a little when I asked about the Votech Center as it is today. Now, we had a pretty rough summer when it came to our teenagers, boys in particular. We had a lot of gunfire, a lot of shooting, and these youngsters were 15, 16, 17 years old. And my thought is, how can we redirect some of that energy? They have no skills, and my thought is, how much would it cost to get a youngster through one of those programs? You get back to me later with that, because there are organizations out here who want to fund, you know, educating these youngsters, take the guns out of their hand and maybe put a hammer or, screwdriver or a wrench. And so that's my thought.
Or computer.
Well, right now, it could be a computer, yeah. But our youngsters, 15, 16, 14 years old, that's where all of our headaches were this summer. And we need to redirect that energy and harness that energy, and so you can just get back to me with that, so that I can talk to the individuals who are interested in trying to fund some of these youngsters.
So, Dr. Boone and Mr. Jones, what I'm hearing is that we want the both of you to work with the teams that visited Dr. Boone when she was in Massachusetts, from Greater Norfolk and others, to create the structure before we get a building. I think we were putting the building before the structure. So the application for the public charter a skeleton of a board, if you will, include school board members, the business community, maybe council members, maybe industry leaders, and have an application, because again, that application has certainly to be submitted to the school board if it's going to be a public charter school. And I think that's the message you're hearing. Get something back to us that resembles a structure, a governance, a mission, if it's going to be this regional pathway school, or if it's going to be a Norfolk standalone only school, and whether or not we build or retrofit an existing building program. Please get back to us. Dr. Gabriel, you had something?
Well, I was just going to say that while this conversation has been going on for many years, the people sitting at the table, some of us are new. And we have new school board members, we certainly have a new superintendent, we have new city council members. And so I don't think that, as we've heard in conversation, that there's any doubt that the city would benefit from it, that the students would benefit from it. But as you saw the presentation that Dr. Boone just showed, 51% of our schools are fully accredited. We still have another half to go. And so whenever we task the superintendent with another duty, not saying it's not important, we just have to keep that in mind. And I think that collectively coming together and to have this conversation together is great. It's important, but let's keep in mind that academics, first and foremost, for the children that are in the seats right now, is her main priority. And let's just take that into consideration, and that all of us at the table, not all of us have been here for the many years that this has been developed.
Dr. Gabriel, we have asked Manager Jones to take the lead on the CTE, but certainly he cannot do it without Dr. Boone, because your board would have to, again,
That is correct.
yeah, make the final decision. So we're not going to task Dr. Boone with any more work. Mr. Jordan has made it very clear that she doesn't work for me. But Marcus does. So
And we work well together. We're in this one together.
So we're gonna ask the manager to work with the groups and put something. So the heavy lifting will be done by the manager.
And just on that point, when you get a chance, this is a good package that the team put together. If you really get a chance to go and look through it in detail, you'll see that a lot of the work around the framing of the vision, what representation may look like in terms of a governing body, that piece has really been done. We talked about in our training in terms of, as we talked about earlier, setting the vision, the goals, and our accountability system. We've asked the superintendent to come back and give us a report, and then we're going to do the best that we can to provide the support and guidance and the relationships and the partnerships, but really be out of the way and allow the superintendent and the manager to work together. It becomes very difficult. We have 15 people, all with different views and different perspectives, trying to make this thing work. But I think this shows that while it has been some time spent on it, it's been good time spent. And I think we're at that threshold, and I'm sure that, like I said earlier, Dr. Boone is definitely going to come back to the board and let us know the direction that she wants to recommend, and I know that she and the manager will work arm in arm in doing that. So.
All right, we have, according to our calendar and our schedule and our agenda, we have 5 minutes left, and we're only on number 5, board council communication collaboration. We may have touched on that, but there may be some budget items the manager or the superintendent want to discuss, meeting schedule, whether or not Tommy talked about forming committees, joint committees, and maybe one of the committees will be on CTE, and other committees may be on the alternatives that Tommy mentioned, and maybe other committees. And then lastly, before the closing comments, legislative priorities or updates. We have begun our legislative packet, and if you have already sent yours over to
We're going to give you an update on where we are.
Okay,
I can do it in just 2 minutes.
you got it.
So next Wednesday, which is October 5th, at our work session, Advantage Strategies, which is our lobbying partner, is going to discussion where we're going to identify our priority educational legislative goals for this year. And so coming out of that, we will have a good sense of direction. And then we're also going to layer that with the Virginia School Board Association legislative priorities. And then I'd also like to see where we are with the Virginia Municipal League and see where their interests are with education priorities. And so while we come together with VSBA, our priorities, and VML, we also want to work with the city to see collectively what are our joint educational priorities so that we're speaking with one voice when we all go to Richmond. So I know that Michelle Washington has been working with Dr. Sharon Birdsong in sharing the information about where our process is. And so again, you'll hear from us next week with some of our initial thoughts of our educational priorities. And then we'll probably vote on those later in October, if not then, 1st of November. And then we are having our legislative breakfast on November 15th at our NTC Center, by the way, so we can have our electeds come and take a peek at our school there. So that's our timing moving forward, and we look forward to working with you all and having collective conversations about what the educational priorities are coming out of Norfolk. Today I'm hearing of one for sure, which is CTE. So that's just one example. Pre-K is going to be another example that you're probably going to hear loud and clear out of Norfolk Public Schools, and I'm sure you all, and budget, of course, that's kind of that's a given. So I've just mentioned 3 alone that I'm sure mirror many of yours, but we can just continue to work collaboratively. Michelle Washington and Dr. Birdsong, and then Ms. Wagner and I chair the board committee for legislative priorities.
Very good.
Questions?
So we meet November 1st, though, with our legislators, am I correct?
Yes.
So we need to maybe have some updates there, so we're prepared at that point to be in collaboration with you.
Yeah, I think.
I know that's pushing that a little bit, but if you
No,
and
we're
the
on
group
that
can get
schedule.
together, that would be helpful for us.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's pushing it because I think this is my timeline. I'd like for us to have a conversation October 5th. We have
Okay, so
we have
that's
a
good.
business meeting later in October. I would suggest we vote on them then. And they may be draft at that point, but draft pretty close. And then we move forward. If there's anything else that comes from VSBA or anywhere else in the state following that, we can just add them later. But I think we will have them by your November 1 anyway.
Okay, we're going to have about 5 or 6 minutes. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing closing remarks, I'm just going to go around the room because I know that Dr. Haywood and Dr. Robinson and Mr. Thomas have not said a thing. So maybe they're so I'm going to go around the room and I'll start with Ms. Wagner. We just go around the room and just sum it up.
Well, number one is this is a great meeting that we have got come together as a team, showing unity in terms of the school board and the city council, even though collectively we are a different, and Mr. Jordan certainly will let you know that we are in charge of the school board, but we certainly do want to work collectively to make this thing happen and make sure that our schools move forward. I enjoyed the conversation on CTE. Is definitely a priority for me. There are some concerns in terms of I want to make sure that all of our students, and piggybacking on Mr. Riddick, in terms of the disabled and everything, I do want to make sure that they are part of this process also. But the conversation is good. I'm glad we're opening it up, and I'm glad that we're working as a team to move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Smigiel?
To follow our rule from our retreat about not having too many kumbaya conversations here at the end, but you know, I want to take a different approach. I'm disappointed in this meeting because we made education our #1 priority at our retreat. It was the first thing we talked about. And Terry and I, for years, have been trying to get this to not be an hour-and-a-half meeting that happens rushed. Conversation that is presentation-based, but then some discussion. And while there was great conversation, it wasn't to the extent that it should be. And you know, we have proposed in the past an opportunity to have a retreat with school board. I see Courtney nodding her head because we've talked about this for years, in which all of us get together and we talked about doing quarterly retreats as council, but maybe our first one should be a half a day at a minimum, that we can break up in committees, and maybe it can be facilitated by the School Board Association with our staff together and find out where we have common ground. We've mentioned, I think this council has more pro-education people on it than we've ever had in the city of Norfolk, and so the school board should take advantage of that. But we've got to have those conversations. I think there's a lot left on the table today, and we need that time to really talk and discuss our passions and where we need to go. So I'm hopeful that that will be an outcome that will come from this, is that we can get back to that plan to do that.
Dr. Haywood?
And I would agree with Councilman Smeagol that that type of discussion is really needed. Just in terms of discussing roles and norms that we have to be able to interact with that would be very important. So I look forward to those opportunities.
Mrs. Graves?
I would just like to take the opportunity to remind everyone who sits at the table that it's really not a council versus school board or a school board versus council. These are all of our children, and they are all of our responsibility. And as we move forward to an elected school board, we do have some changes in perhaps the roles of the council and the school board. But I think it's important that we all keep in mind that it's not an us versus them, whoever the us's are or whoever the thems are. It's us collectively and we collectively as a community, but as two governing boards who are working together to make sure that we increase the number of educated students who leave our schools, who leave our city, and we increase the number of productive citizens who come out of our schools. And while, Marcus works for us and Dr. Boone works for the school board, we all work for the children. And I think that is something that we have to keep in mind before agendas or anything else, is that at the end of the day, it is all about the children.
Mrs. Johnson?
One of the things I had mentioned was that we take the time to discuss Norfolk Public Schools initiatives and what the city council initiatives are and how they link. And based on each organization's initiatives, how can we better plan for our families and our scholars? So I would really like for us to take some time to discuss and plan on each organization's initiatives, because that is very important. Because looking at the initiative, I see some of the things that Norfolk Public Schools is working on is some of the same initiatives that we as a governing body, the city council, is working on. The name may be different, but we're still heading in the same path. So we need to take the time to do that. Ms. Dole, you mentioned having an opportunity to look at the legislative plans from different organizations. At our retreat, we received copies of rough drafts from each of those organizations, and I think it would be a great opportunity for the school board to have copies of the different organizations, such as VML, the Virginia First Cities, and there were a couple of that you may want to look at and see how it ties into what you're proposing as far as your legislative packet. It helped me to guide me as far as understanding what everybody was asking as far as our scholars were concerned in education. So, thank you.
Mrs. Basine?
Well, to borrow some of the language from the debate last night, that I'm sure everybody here watched, but
It's going to be about Rosie O'Donnell.
it's not going to be about Rosie O'Donnell, and no, I'm not
Believe
gonna,
me?
I'm not going to say believe me.
Wrong.
But a question that was asked is, or I'm going to frame it relative to Norfolk, but what kind of city and what kind of school division do we want to be? And how are we going to work together to get there? I mean, I share some of the sentiments that Mr. Spiegel shared and all of those that followed. Because I think we have a lot of work to do, because right now, we, as part of our mission statement, we say that we are going to be the cornerstone of a proudly diverse community. And that was an aspirational mission. Prior to being on the board, I was on the strategic planning team that was pulled together a couple of years ago, and that was an aspirational mission that I think that we have not fully, that hasn't fully materialized yet. And I think part of that is the commitment of all of us in making sure that that we are taking the steps to truly get there. If you look at the demographics of our city compared to the demographics of our school system, you see a disparity there that we need to have open conversations and crucial conversations around. So I look forward to future conversations with the city council and having those discussions. And furthermore, I think as we talk about, Mr. Riddick, you mentioned the hard times that some of our young students had over the summertime. I think we got to think about, we can't just talk about education in isolation from public safety, from housing, from health. And health is a huge issue that we need to kind of bring together, really come up with a comprehensive look at what we're doing here together to really be a culture of, have a strong culture of health, have a strong culture of health safety, and one that puts education at the foremost. So I look forward to working with everybody here, and I think this is a great first step in that direction.
Dr. Robinson?
Thank you. Exactly, that's a first step. I'm encouraged by the conversations. I'm encouraged by the fact that we're meeting together. We have a lot of opportunities in this city. We have a lot of challenges, but we have a lot of opportunities. We have dedicated people that are working to better our city, our students' quality of life here. We can move to collaborate with other parts of the city, like the Planning Commission and the Poverty Commission and things of that nature to help create a comprehensive vision for where we want to take the school division and the city. I think we need more time, not less time together. The idea of a retreat to me, has always been a positive thing. Not that I need another meeting to attend, but this is critical information that we need to share with each other. I'm really excited about the conversation about CTE. I'm the longest tenured board member, and my very second meeting was that August 2011 meeting concerning the presentation of the CTE, and I right from the beginning, I knew that was a win-win primarily for the students, because that's where opportunities lie in the jobs of the 21st century. And it's an opportunity for the city to really be on the cutting edge of something huge for this project. And I too like the idea of building them in phases, and instead of trying to get the whole big process at one thing, build it in phases and then create success and then find the funding afterwards. But again, encouraged. We know we have a lot of work to do, and without being a kumbaya moment, I'm just appreciative of the opportunity to come here and share with you. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. What hasn't been said. First thing to the school board, every one of you. I appreciate and thank you for all the work that you do. I truly believe that the school board is the toughest, hardest working board in the city. And I know it's not easy. I know you give up a lot of your free time. And personally, I want to thank you for doing that. Rodney, you mentioned earlier that you don't want to start a media war, but I think you've heard today that a number of us on council don't have a problem calling the media out when they're wrong. And so I'll echo, we spent a lot of time on the agenda today talking about an issue that is not an issue. It's actually something that's good for the students. But for a poorly written, poorly researched article, we could have spent a lot more time today working on issues that are important. And so I do, and that leads me into what everyone else has said here today. We need to spend more time talking about the important issues. I agree, whether it's more meetings, longer meetings, retreats, whatever is the appropriate thing, I have to agree with all of that. Courtney, I agree with you. I'd like to leave here today with an idea of what our schedule is going to be. Quarterly, whatever it is, I think we deserve to make that decision. We ought to make that decision today. And newbie question, but I think at some point, sooner rather than later, we ought to sit down and start discussing budgetary requests for next year, so that we can all be on the same team as too many people have already said today we should be. Thank you.
Mr. Riddick?
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is agree with Angela. Sometimes it always looks like us against them, and we need to put that to rest.
Mr. Doyle?
I'll echo quickly about the budget. Dr. Boone wants to actually do a different approach with our budget this year, which is zero-based budget. So that's new for us as a division, and I think that's important. And I know, Dr. Boone, you want to get started on that sooner than later, and so I think the sooner we have the conversation, the better, which is great. And the other thing is that you've all heard about what is going on in the schools, but I know that the city council and school board and the community at large can really do a lot with what is going on in our communities outside of the four walls of the schools that end up coming into the four walls of the schools. So I think the more we have support in the community with wraparound services and other that I know you all can marshal as council members that we may not be able to, we need to take advantage of that and leverage that so that it helps the students who are coming from challenged communities into our schools, make them even more successful. Thanks.
All right, Mrs. McClellan?
Yes, we could do a lot with wraparound. We should be making sure that our kids get to school healthy, ready to learn, and so that teachers can teach. So I'm with you, and I want to help as much as possible on that. In terms of working together and some low-hanging fruit, easy, low-cost ideas, how about at every city council meeting, we recognize something good that's happening in our school system? Let's bring our schools into city council and talk positively about what's happening. I think that would be an interesting, we do recognize teams at times and do other things, but it might be something that's an interesting thing that shows that we're working together.
And we own that airtime.
I'm dedicated to I want to go to all of our schools and see what's happening there. We've already started that. And my question to you all is, if I'm in the schools and I see something, I'm not school board, and I'm not policy, how do you want us to communicate? Maybe we could talk about that at our next meeting, but I do get a lot of parents, members of the community at Civic Leagues who have a whole list of things that they want to address with me. And so trying to determine the right way to funnel that information so that it looks like we're working together, not against each other. Again, let's work together. I think that's really, really important there. And budget, schedule, all the other things that we've talked about. But I'm looking forward to it. We do have a very pro-education city council right now, and I am MPS, so there.
Redesign.
Dr. Whibley?
Hashtag redesign.
Nice thing about being last is everything's already been said, well, almost last. And, I've been talking since June that I want to schedule, and I think maybe Kenny and Rodney could sit down and figure out that schedule of our meetings and get it done sooner than later. And the other thing that I'm sorry we didn't have time to talk about, but I hope will be high on our agendas is the collaboration. I think there's a lot of ways we can all benefit from doing some things together. It doesn't need to be done twice. We've tried some things in the past, but gosh, there's so many more opportunities for us that there doesn't need to be the open. So that would be certainly an agenda item.
All right, Dr. Gabriel.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting this meeting today. Definitely looking forward to the next meeting, and hopefully it will be at one of Norfolk's great schools. We're missing somebody from the room today. We're missing our student representative. And, and that's fine, but I just think that it's an example of how Norfolk has put students first. We have taken the initiative to put a student on our board to get their opinion and to hear what their concerns and issues are. I echo all of the sentiments that have been said. I'm so excited that we're very pro-education. Let's see it in the budget, because we are going to bring forth a budget that is going to be comprehensive from Dr. Boone. We're doing a pay and comp study. We know, not as an educator myself, but it is the teacher interaction with that student that matters the most, and whatever we need to do in order to bolster that. And Dr. Boone's findings and her work with the district leadership team, that's what we need to do to support that. I am all about the what are the next steps. And so meetings, whether it's CTE, the board coming together and starting this first step of the marathon, I think is at least a positive direction for us all to go in.
Well, thank you very much. We will have our quarterly retreat coming up very soon. We usually are there for 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, And I just checked with the chairman, Rodney Jordan, and he has agreed that, that you will come on Wednesday to be part of our retreat. So we'll get that word. You just signed off on it. We'll get that word out to you of those dates. So again, thank you all for coming.
So Kenny, a lot of us would like to know about that quarterly.
Well, you know, we talked
But
about it.
I know, I'm just
Retreat. Okay, all right. We just gotta get the dates. We talked about it.
We heard you, and we talked about the concept, and we know that we're gonna work together to find a date and time that works good for everyone. Just wanted to, go back in terms of the retreat idea. I think as a board, we've talked about it, we're open to it. We're ready for it at the time that we can set it up. We don't want to get to the operations of the board, but I think those things, like Mrs. Johnson mentioned earlier, where we collaborate, ready to thrive, and how those things fit together. The other thing I just wanted to mention in terms of, a couple of you mentioned my comments about the media. The issue that was brought forward around the alternative pathway was a legitimate issue. And anytime we have children that might be in a position where they're not getting the best opportunity to succeed, my point was that we're not going to shy away from it as a governance team. What the media reported was our work, and so we're prepared to take that on. We're prepared to have our messaging together, as we talked about earlier. But I don't want there to be the perception that every time that there's a story in the newspaper, whether it's positive or negative or neutral, that somehow we just have to immediately begin to jump and react. We are working on an accountability system. Dr. Boone and her team are leading us towards success, and we're going to continue to stay focused on that work. And sometimes the work may bring about things that I know all of us kind of hedge when we pick up the paper in the morning, and sometimes it'll be great stories like the opening at Camp Estella that we had today. So we'll continue to push forward. We'll improve our communication. We've talked about that as a board, and Councilman Thomas talked about the work that we do. We put a lot of time, just as school board and the superintendent, trying to work through all the things we need to work through to be together for children. We like to do it with 15, but I don't want anyone to think that just because sometimes we may be focused on getting that piece done, that we're saying we're not open to the collaboration and partnership. We are. So with that,
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so we'll take school board members will be excused. Council members, if you please stay around for 1 or 2 items of business.